Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is in attendance in Washington, D.C., with a flurry of bilateral meetings scheduled on the sidelines of the summit. He's expected to meet with Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban on Tuesday and will address heads of states on Wednesday. Later, he will meet with the Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. Well, our diplomatic correspondent Andrew Hopkins has more from Maryland.
Well, there are two main aims, according to what Turkish officials have been saying in the last few weeks. One of them is to see the remaining arms embargoes on Turkey lifted by some of the other NATO countries. Most of them date back to 2019, when there were a series of disputes between Turkey and some of the other countries about its military operations in northern Syria against terrorist groups like the PKK and the YPG. And what Turkish officials have said recently is that a lot of these embargoes have now been lifted. I think this particularly since Turkey's decision to approve to back Sweden and Finland's NATO membership applications. The other issue is to sort of really get home the point they want to make about the fight against terrorism and what NATO can do with that, because in the last few years Turkey has come up against repeated problems really about what it wants to achieve, what it thinks NATO should be achieving on its southern flank, because again this is to do with the PKK and also the YPG. These are both terrorist organizations in Turkey, and what it's been trying to do is to try and get more cooperation, more support for these kinds of issues on NATO's southern flank, because Turkey is right on the southern border, the southeastern border of all of the NATO countries. So it wants to try and sort of drive that message home too as well, but the major stumbling block it has is mainly with the United States, but one or two other countries. But in the United States' case, it's currently working with the Syrian Democratic Forces in northern Syria, which is effectively largely made up of the YPG and some other groups. So on this particular issue, the Turkish government's still got, I think, quite a hard job ahead of it.
Well, the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says Gaza will be at the top of his agenda during the NATO summit in Washington. Speaking to TRT World, the US State Department's spokesperson said Türkiye is an important partner with Washington and Ankara in constant communication.
We know the U.S. is working for the day after plan in Gaza, and for the NATO Summit, Turkish President Erdogan and his delegation, including the foreign minister, will be here in town. Is that something you will discuss with your Turkish counterparts, given Ankara has long pledged to guarantorship in the region, and we hear from the Turkish officials that they are encouraging Hamas to accept the ceasefire proposal, and also right after Joe Biden announced the ceasefire deal, we know Secretary Blinken and Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan held a phone call immediately right after that. So I'd like to hear more on that.
Yes, in fact, we have been discussing the end of the conflict and what comes next with Turkey for some time. You may recall that Secretary Blinken in January traveled to Istanbul to meet with President Erdogan and with the Foreign Minister Fidan, and has had a number of subsequent meetings with the Foreign Minister to talk about both how we get to a ceasefire and how we reach a durable end to the war with robust security, governance, and reconstruction plans for Gaza. So that continues to be a topic that we discuss on any occasions when we meet with our Turkish counterparts.